Hey guys, Tammy here. And in this video, we're going to talk about how a narcissist hates being exposed. Now, you've probably heard the term mask used a lot if if you're familiar with narcissists and you've been reading a lot about that and educating yourself, you'll hear that term used a lot, that they wear a mask. And so I'm going to dig into what that means exactly and how that can work to your advantage in your child custody situation. Before we dig into this topic, as always, let me remind you, if you like my channel and you find the content helpful, please subscribe so that you get notified as new videos are released. Also, if you like this video in particular, hit like on it. That helps me kind of determine what things are helpful for me to talk about and, what things aren't as helpful so that I can kind of be a little more focused for you. Let's talk about the mask thing. And, whether or not you've heard the term mask, when I'm talking to people about, a narcissistic ex or whatever, and people that have lived with somebody with narcissism or some kind of high conflict personality, what happens is they behave totally differently out in the free world than they do at home. And it's kind of funny because I really had this experience myself with my first husband where we would, be out in the world and people would say things, we'd go to social events together or whatever. And a lot of times people would just say to me, your husband is just the nicest person, because they're super charming. They kind of have this knack for knowing what you want to hear and kind of regurgitating that back to you or focusing in on things that are important to you. And it's funny because when I first met my late husband, Thomas, I remember him saying that he always thought nobody could be as bad as what I was telling him my ex was. Of course, it was pretty fresh for me at that time, and that's always a difficult time. But as he got to know him and things, he kind of understood more and more like that kind of dark manipulative side, because he's like, hey, this guy seems fine, whatever. And then as incidents would happen and he would kind of see, and then he got to the point where he was like, wow, he's really, really good at kind of charming somebody and getting to know like what they want to hear and saying to you the exact words that, make you feel good. And I said, yeah, he's a master at it. And that's how narcissists are. But many times, or every time, behind closed doors, as we all know, then comes the verbal and emotional abuse and all of those things that they're hiding from the outside world. Now, I don't want to get too deep into the psychological aspects of this, but essentially, this is all rooted in their own insecurities, right? They have a need for people to like them. That's part of their ego. That's part of their validation. And so that's a very common thing with a narcissist. And when you're in court, the way that this can really work to your advantage is they kind of move through their world in that sort of charismatic way and kind of feeding off of other people, right? So again, they'll stand and have a conversation with you, figure out what you care about, what's important to you, and then they dive deeper on that topic, or they kind of feed that narrative back to you. And that's how they kind of create that connection with you. What they're doing actually is they're kind of using that as the way to move through the world instead of using their own reasoning or logic. So all of their behavior is sort of guided by their input from other people. So when you're in court, they think that they can do this very same thing. They think they can walk in and kind of, fly by the seat of their pants like they're used to doing, kind of read the room, feed off of what everybody else is saying, and succeed. Now, I will tell you, sometimes that works in the short term, and it particularly works if you're reactive and you're emotional and you're argumentative and all those kinds of things, especially if you're self-represented and you're going on and on and on and on in front of the judge. That is not going to get you what you're looking for. And that usually does tend to give them more credibility in the first instance. But If you can play the long game and you can get your facts down and you can document and you can keep track of things and keep track of dates and times and facts and all those kinds of things, then I find that over the course of your case, it gets easier to pull their story apart. Okay. Because when they're kind of giving their narrative to the court, they're not relying on those facts and figures, and they're not even relying on what they said the last time they were there, right? Because again, they just fly by the seat of their pants and they don't worry about what they said before, whatever. They just figure they'll talk their way out of it if it's a problem. And I kind of have this again happen in my own case where we went in on a support issue, on child support. I was asking for child and spousal support. And we went in front of the judge, and I did have an attorney. I was very new in the process and didn't really know a lot. This was actually our very first court hearing, our only court hearing, actually. And my ex-husband shows up and, he's in a 3-piece suit and the whole 9 yards, decked out. And we go in and the judge starts talking and my attorney's, presenting, the information or whatever. And obviously I'm asking for support. So we needed income information. And thankfully my attorney had the foresight to say, hey, Tammy, include your pay stubs and also include his pay stubs if you have copies of them so that the judge will be able to see in case he doesn't submit any documents or respond or anything. Because she kind of knew that he probably wasn't going to. He had been unresponsive in the process up to that point. So she kind of knew that that was a high probability. So I attached my pay stubs and his to my income declaration that I did for the court. And so we go in and my attorney starts presenting and everything. And my ex-husband says, Your Honor, can I say something? And the court said, well, sir, you can say something. I'll let you talk. But the fact is, you haven't filed a response to the divorce, to the petition, right? You haven't filed a response to this request for support. You haven't provided any of your income information. So I really can't consider anything you're going to say. I'm going to have to go off of the information that, your ex-wife has provided, but I will let you speak. He went into this whole thing about, how he didn't have money and how he couldn't afford to pay support and, how I had a job, blah, 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 and the whole thing and accused me of withholding the kids and, all the stuff, all the things. And then the court said, okay, I understand. And then they took the numbers I had provided, ran their little calculator and gave me a support award that oddly enough, he and I had tried about 30 to 45 days prior to this to negotiate an amount. And the amount that I was agreeing to settle at was $400 more than the amount that he would agree to pay me. So we were $400 off. Now, the funny thing about that is we went to court and the court actually went $400 above my offer. So the court actually ordered more than what I was even willing to settle at. The lesson in that is like, know your numbers, right? Know what the potential outcomes are if you're going to try to negotiate with somebody, because obviously that's a huge factor. I mean, if he had known that he was going to go in and get even more than what I was offering as his payment, then, he might have been more likely to settle with me. My number just came out of, hey, this is what I need to make ends meet with, the kids. I can't, this is what it is. Anyway, my point is that he went in and just tried to manage his way through it verbally like he always does. And so this is a point of weakness because since they are afraid of being exposed and they kind of always put that front on and they don't really get down to the actual facts, you're able to then use that to help you because you can keep track of the facts, you can keep track of the information. And as you repeatedly go in front of the court and they're just sort of spewing this narrative and you keep coming in with facts and you're reasonable and you're not emotional and you're doing all the things that I talk about that you need to do, then you start to gain momentum. You start to gain credibility. Okay. This isn't an overnight thing. So if you've gone in for your first hearing and it didn't go well, don't lose hope. Okay. You can turn the tide. It takes patience because it doesn't happen overnight. So if you'd like to learn more about how I can support you in this, you can go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. There's a link on that page. You can book a time to talk to a member of my staff and learn more about my services and how I might be able to support you on your journey. See you guys next time.